and I think this will be a regular segment, but we're going to do a fantasy style draft of baseball movies today.
I'm with it.
And since you are the guest, you get to choose. Do you want the first pick or the snake picks round 2 and 3?
Give me the snake pick. I'll take the snake pick.
All right. Well, then, since I get number 1 overall, this is going to be an easy one for me, and that is The Sandlot.
Oh, that's a great one.
If I'm going to pick a baseball movie to watch, not everybody's played at the highest levels, but everybody, has played at The Sandlot. I can still remember, growing up, I lived on a main street, but behind me there was a little cul-de-sac, and that created this weird field. Kind of behind everybody's garages there. That's where we always used to get together and play, until we got a little bit bigger.
It's funny. I never played a lot of Sandlot baseball, surprisingly. But I played a lot of AAU baseball. But we just never had a good enough group of guys that wanted to always get together and do it. So I love it. I love that movie, though.
All right. And you get your 2 picks now.
Man. So I'll take the obvious one. It's not necessarily my favorite, but I think in the pantheon of, sorry, you can hear my kid just yelling at the top of his lungs. I have the pantheon of baseball movies. I think everyone would go with probably Field of Dreams. So I'll take Field of Dreams as my first one.
I mean, obviously, that's, a boy playing catch with his dad, ghost baseball.
Yeah.
I've actually gone out to the Field of Dreams. I had a cousin that lives a couple hours from there. And I went up one time and made the drive. I know they were talking. Eventually, somebody bought a bunch of the cornfields around there, and they're going to put up like a baseball softball complex all around it.
Oh wow!
But they still have to preserve X amount of rows of corn for the baseball field. Was part of the sale deal.
That's dope.
And then the funny part was, for a long time, where there were 2 farms that butted up against each other there. So the field was technically on 2 separate farms.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realize that.
So they told, as part of when you go out there, they tell you the story, like, this set of bleachers was on this farm, this set was on the other. And if you came to this one, it was free, but you had to pay admission to go over there. It was just odd. It's like, and then they finally talked the other guy into selling out. So
they were like, "Come on, dude, chill out with that." Yeah, no, I think that's definitely, like, I mean, it's a good movie. I've seen it probably a zillion times, but I mean, like, if I was gonna go baseball movies, it probably wouldn't be the first one I'd pop in, but it's always a good one. If it's on TV, I'll watch it like 9 times out of 10. So I'll take it. And then my next pick, I will take my personal favorite, and it's just because it's really the first baseball movie I remember, and I watched it a zillion times, probably starting at the age of like 6, 7. Is Major League. I love Major League.
Okay, so you did. That was going to be in my turn in my next set of picks too. So
I was so worried. I was like, he might take it, but I have to have it. So it's because it's my favorite. So I love Major League.
And that's where Sandlot went for me. I was like, I ain't letting anybody else get this. I was like, always got to let the guests have the option to pick their picks. But man, I don't want to lose that one. But Major League was another one up there. I mean, when I first talked to you about doing the top 5, that would have been number 3 out of my top 5 movies.
Nice.
Of baseball.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just such classic. It's a little different. It's a little rough around the edges, obviously. There's so many characters that are like iconic, whether it be Ricky Vaughn or, Joe Boo or whatever. There's so many that are like just like big time like staples of like the thought process when you think of like movie baseball.
No, and every spring when we get to spring training, that's one of those movies I just have to plop in. Or now, of course, I want to age myself there, plop it in. But now you just pick a streaming service,
right,
and watch it. It's because it's still always funny. Yeah,
I love it. Every now and then they play like movie marathons on like MLB Network, or they used to, like in the last couple of years, and I'm like, sometimes I'll catch it on there, but it's so funny because they change all like the curse words to like not curse words, but there's a lot of curse words in that movie.
Just a few.
I'm interested to see where you go with the 4th pick.
So the 4th pick was a pretty easy one because it was my number 2 on my top 5 behind Sandlot, and that is Bull Durham.
I kind of figured that might be.
I mean, again, Crash Davis is just one of the all-time immortal
Yeah,
pantheon of baseball movie actors.
definitely. I mean, Kevin Costner, baseball movie. I mean,
They're always going to be a home run, right?
pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen a bad one, so even bad ones are good ones.
And again, of course, it kind of gives you a misrepresentation of life in the minor league baseball system. I think every, I live in a minor league baseball town, and I think every player likes to remind you that there is no Susan Sarandon waiting for you
No,
at a minor league stadium.
no. Susan Sarandon, low key. If we did a draft of like women that like were probably on my list as an adolescent teen till now, Susan Sarandon might be like one of my top 3 picks. I don't know why, but
Well, because she played so many iconic
just
roles
so
that
many
were,
iconic.
it's just, yeah, she was definitely up there for
Definitely.
every boy in that age range for sure.
For sure.
It's right there with Alyssa Milano.
Yeah, yeah. Surprisingly, she got into the baseball line. She has sports clothes. So I mean,
She does. All right. So my third one's a little more tricky because you took my 3 and 4 already out of my list. And I'm trying to think if I want to go with number 5 now or if I think it'll slide through.
that's the fun part of these drafts is like the the thought process of like, do I think so and so will take that pick? Can I get it a little later? Do I have to take it now? It's wild.
No, I'm taking it anyways. Number 3 for me is Moneyball.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Uh, I read the book
Yeah.
before I ever watched the movie. Obviously the movie's not very, it's close to the book, but not really. It more focuses on just kind of one specific season or one aspect of what the book talked about.
Yeah.
And I have my own critiques of the book because you can focus on all the bargain hitters that Billy Bean signed, but if you don't make any mention of Hudson, Zito, and Mulder
Yeah.
in what they were able to accomplish, and it really didn't. It's like
Yeah.
kind of leaving out a big detail there. He had 3 bargain aces at the
He
time.
did. And the crazy thing is like Hudson was not super highly I mean he was touted enough, but he wasn't like when he came on, it was like, okay. But then Zito kind of had a little fanfare behind him, and Mulder was good coming out. I mean, they just worked really well. I mean, but those are 3 aces on most teams. I mean, at that time.
No, I mean, and they all got ace money when they
Yeah,
left.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
for
it
sure.
was no doubt. Or, again, did they all perform as well once they left? Injuries and time catch up, and that's you know
Yeah.
that's life. But I've always just been impressed by what Billy Bean was able to accomplish in Oakland with every his payroll restraints, with his stadium restraints.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I mean, it's
I mean, definitely an interesting franchise, and for them to get good and the players they pulled, and I mean, that's an accomplishment of what those teams went on to accomplish with having such a low payroll, especially in the time where guys were getting contracts that were even stupid astronomical compared. Now they're still astronomical, but that was like when people were like breaking record after record after record every time someone got a contract, and it was like nuts. So
a little different. 252 million sits a little different today than it did 15,
back
20
then,
years
yeah.
ago.
For sure, it did. Oh man, I'm gonna have a. I don't know if I'm like at that point where I'm like, do I want to go with personal favorites or do I want to go with like what people think as far as like good baseball movies? Because there's so many. Like I'm like, I'm gonna go with an obvious one that I think is a good one. It's not. It's not a. It's a good watch. It's also baseball centered, but it's not. Um, I don't think traditional when people think of like pure baseball movies. It is basically entirely about baseball, but give me Angels in the Outfield.
Okay, that was one I didn't put on my list, but it was close. I was like, do I want it on there? Don't I? But I have a couple other movies in that same vein. So,
Yeah.
again, if you're a baseball fan of any level, and again, uh, being somebody who was born in the very, very, very early '80s, that movie came out at just the right time to be
Oh,
one
for
that
sure.
you know. And there were a whole series of them in that time frame. I'm not going to necessarily name them all because they may come up still yet.
For sure. No, and that's where I'm like struggling because I have one that's a favorite and I have another one. I have 2 that like I think of as almost like even level right now that I'm like, man, do I want to take either of them, and they're two different sides of the stratosphere for me. I'm gonna take one that I will feel bad if I don't have it on my list, and that is another Kevin Costner movie. It's probably my favorite, second favorite baseball movie ever, and that's For the Love of the Game. I love that movie.
All right. Yeah, again, didn't quite make my list just because after a point, it's like, all right, how many Kevin Costner movies do I want to have in here? And how long do I want to
I
go?
mean, Detroit Tigers pitcher throws a perfect game. I mean, I'm sold.
Uh, I still try to remember every year to immortalize Andres Galarraga's 28 out perfect game
Yeah,
for Detroit Tigers pitcher. Boy, if there was ever a guy who just missed instant replay by just a
dude.
year or two.
I think about it every time I'm watching like some sport, or every time I'm watching baseball, and there's like they use an instant replay. I'm like, man,
And,
what a
and
save.
and he handled it with such grace and class. I think it was a bigger win for him than actually getting the perfect
Oh
game,
yeah, for sure.
because everybody else in the world's like, I could see myself melting down in this situation very easily.
For sure.
Like, I would have lost. Nope. He just like, okay, get the ball. Let's go get the last out.
And the crazy thing is there's so many guys that have. I mean, there's not so many guys that have perfect games, but there's so many guys that have like perfect games or no hitters that like you don't even think about per se. But like the dude that didn't get a perfect game, and you think of him almost more synonymously with the perfect game.
Yeah, I think again, I think that just worked out perfectly. It could have been easy to just, okay, let's go with it and be mad, but no.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the stuff that yeah, I mean, instant replay would have changed that whole thing, but it is what it is. Part of baseball, you know.
The imperfect human is part of baseball. All right,
Yes,
so
it
I'm
is.
kind of in the same spot you are now. Is you're getting into some of, do we go for the all timers? Do we go for some of my personal favorites? I think for the first one, I'm going to take one that if it wasn't on either of our lists, I would feel bad. I don't think it's as highly rated in the baseball movies. Some lists it makes it up there, but usually not the top 10 or anything like that. And that's 8 Men Out.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Um,
Definitely a good one.
the Black Sox scandal was just such a part of baseball,
Oh
and it
yeah.
kind of took the cloak off of some of it, at least, of here's what happened, here's who was involved, and here's kind of some of the guys who got caught up that didn't even have a clue what they were doing.
Right.
I think a ton of people make a big deal about Pete Rose not being in the Hall of Fame, but I think Joe Jackson is a bigger oversight in my opinion, because
Mhm.
yeah, did he probably sign the document that he couldn't read? Sure.
Probably.
Did he probably take some money? I'm sure, because those guys weren't making anything back then. But did his
Yeah.
play change at all? Absolutely
No.
not. The
I mean,
numbers were fantastic.
he was great. Like, I mean, if he was throwing it, I don't know where he was throwing it.
Yeah. Like, and again, it's one I don't know that anybody necessarily threw that series as much as if you talk to some of the historians, it's like, oh, those pitchers were just completely burnt out, and the
Yeah.
players found a way to capitalize and take a paycheck. Like,
Yeah.
they knew they probably weren't winning that series going in.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's baseball was a lot different than it is today. I mean, you had guys that were making very small, tiny wages and going to work a job after the season. I mean, it's not like today's where it's those guys are set for life. So
Get past your rookie limitations there in baseball, and the sky's the limit.
yeah.
So my next one, see, I think I'm going to only go with one off the wall one. I'm going to save that for the last one, especially since I get the last picks
Yeah.
as well. But again, living in South Bend, if I didn't pick A League of Their Own,
Oh, that's a good
home of the South Bend Blue Sox, I probably would have gotten thrown out of town.
one. I was going to take that next, so that was a good pick.
You could, because I was wondering. That was when I was like, "Does it slide?" I said, "I don't think so. I think it's made it too far down already."
I was gonna say I thought that was the one I was like questioning back and forth with For the Love of the Game, and I was like two different. One was like obviously one very it's like comedy sort. I guess they're kind of a similar movie. I guess they're sort of comedy, sort of serious, but two different like you in almost two different like leagues basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that. That's a good pick. That's a great movie too. I mean, I just watched that again maybe like 3-4 months ago.
As I say, anytime it's on TV, I just stop what I'm doing. Like, all right, we're committed
You're
for
like,
the rest of this now.
we're watching this.
I'm sure it's
Okay.
on any of my 18 streaming services on my TV. You know,
It has to be, right? You would think there's like there should be a baseball movie streaming service. That's how many baseball movies there are.
$1 million
Ooh,
idea there.
right? Copyrighted. No, just kidding. I'm I always like these lists when they start because you're like, oh, the possibilities, and then you get down and you're like, I have so many
Oh,
freaking movies that I'm like, which one do I go
I'm definitely gonna we'll definitely do an honorable mention after we get through our 6 picks
with? Oh,
because
thank
yeah,
goodness.
I've got a fistful of myself that aren't gonna get picked that I'm like, oh no, got to talk about those at least for a minute here.
All right, I'm gonna go with a recent one that I really really like. I guess it's not. I don't know how recent it is. I guess it's recenter. I guess. I'm gonna take 42, the Jackie Robinson story.
Okay, so that was one that I was looking at. So I
Yeah,
was like,
they did a good job with it, and
no,
like, and that's the tough part is like a lot of baseball movies where you're like, if you can suspend your fandom of actual sports, then like you can get into it. But sometimes you're just watching, you're like, that's what makes League of Their Own so good is like you believe that they're actually playing.
yeah,
Like
no, like the
it
baseball was good.
feels,
Yeah,
yeah, feels good. And so like same thing with like For the Love of the Game. A lot of that movie feels like you're in it, sort of, and like it gives you like a different dynamic. The storyline outside of it could falters at some points, but like the baseball feels good. Same thing with 42. I think it all comes out really good. And then the other one, I think I'm surprised it hasn't been taken yet. Is The Natural, which is
I,
funky, but it's a good baseball movie.
it is. It's just it's one I've seen, so I could say I've seen it. And it's like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, I get it, but it's not going in the rewatch pile necessarily. You know, I'll see
it,
bits and pieces here.
I feel the same. It's not one that I'm gonna pull out and be like, if I have like an option of like 10 movies, I gotta watch 10 baseball movies. It's gonna be right on that like 10 cusp of like, okay, I guess I have to watch a movie, but The Natural is it's good enough that I think it warrants being on the list, I guess.
All right. So I've got a bunch here that I
Okay.
still, like I said, that I want. I'm just not sure.
I got one
So,
I'm mad I didn't pick, but
so the other thing for anybody who's checking this out later or listening later, I'll host on my sports guy Jason Twitter a poll of these two, and you guys tell us which of the 6 movies is the one that you would rather watch. And I'm going for it. Um, as a Cubs fan, if I didn't pick Rookie of the Year, they might kick me out of the Bleacher Bum Nation. So
I love Rookie of the Year. It's great.
I still should throw.
Oh, it was in my thought process. There's another good one too that I like. That's like that was like that too, but I took The Natural because I just figured it was there.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely an all-time classic baseball movie.
Yeah,
It's hard to have a list of 12 somehow
it
and
is. It's
not
weird.
make it really. So at least you took it because, like I said, for me it's probably in that 15 to 20 range. So
I yeah,
it's
I'm with you. It's probably like I said, cusp of like 12, 13, 14, 15. It could be anywhere in that range.
there's just so many good baseball movies. I think that's the one thing I was looking at this and I'm like, there's so many I wanted to put on the list that didn't even make the list, and luckily you had a few of them, but you know,
Yeah.